Welcome to the Financial Architects Podcast. I am your host, Evan Makovsky, and I'm joined by Chief Investment Officer / partner, Larry Steinberg. Good to see you again, Larry. Last we spoke a few months ago, Cabin Advisors was just launched. Give me a progress report, please.
All right. So just so everyone gets the difference, Financial Architects is our firm, and then we set up, we were part of a different registered investment advisory firm for years and years, and we decided to set up our own, and we launched that towards the end of last year. So there are other advisors that are affiliating with Cabin Advisors who are not part of Financial Architects, but I am the Chief Investment Officer for both entities.
Got it. So what is going on now, I guess,
with
Cabin Advisors?
I talked last time a lot, we're trying to build like the type of, advisory practice that I think is going to be beneficial for clients. So we've done a lot of work there. We have added additional custodians into the fold in order to broaden the investment offerings we have. We've done a lot of work on bringing in some new, investments onto the platform. We have taken some off, and we are exiting some things that we had used for years because we're in different economic conditions right now. And in the middle of that, we've also been bringing on a lot of new clients to Financial Architects. So it's been a very, very busy period. But some of the stuff that we're wanting to do is really coming to fruition now. This is a marathon, not a sprint, but in the short term, we're making a lot of progress in order to build the type of platform that I think is going to really be able to deliver good results for people.
Now let's talk about the investing world. Defying predictions of a second year of doom and gloom. Markets seem to be doing very well this year. Did the Fed just pull off a soft landing?
That's what a lot of the economists are saying right now. But I think that, there's a lot more to what goes on in the market than the Fed, right? And so the Fed may have been doing quantitative tightening, and the Fed may have been raising interest rates and doing both at an unprecedented level. But it hasn't brought inflation down. But the economy is still growing, although rather anemically, because I think that 2 or 2.5% economic growth is not going to light anybody on fire. But the reality is they're missing another element that is very big in this, which is that the federal government passed the Inflation Reduction Act, which does anything but reduce inflation, and they passed the Infrastructure Act, and they've been spending additional trillions of dollars pumped into the economy that are a massive stimulus. So while everyone might focus on what the Fed does, the reason the Fed has not crashed the economy and the reason that the inflation numbers haven't come down, I mean, there's multiple factors there, but they just pumped a trillion plus into the ecosphere, right? So when you're pumping $1 trillion into the economy, it has to grow, right? I mean, the amount of negative stuff that would have to happen to offset, that amount of money going out into the system, that would be really, really bad. Now, the reality is this isn't going to last forever, right? And you can't keep spending like this. You just can't. I mean, I remember, when they ran a $500 billion budget deficit, with the second Bush administration. And some of the same economists that say this isn't a problem now were like aghast about it, right? But we've added, 20 trillion in debt in not a long period of time. That didn't really matter when interest rates were really low because, when you're issuing bonds at, 0.01%, it doesn't matter how big the number is, that number isn't substantial. Well, now we're looking at interest rates, an inverted yield curve, but we're still looking at, the shorter term being around 5%, the longer term, under that. But there's a lot of federal debt rolling over. And so now you're looking at that number being very, very meaningful. So, I mean, literally, if they keep on this same course, if you run numbers, you're going to end up in a situation where mandatory payments, Medicare, Social Security, et cetera, and the interest on the debt is going to be higher than what the tax revenues are. And by the way, this is very odd, but tax revenues of the federal government are going down. they're going down while we have economic growth, right? That doesn't make a lot of sense. If you have economic growth, tax revenue should be going up, right? The employment numbers also to me seem a little bit odd. We've had 7 months in a row where they've revised the prior numbers down. That I don't think that's ever happened before, right? Where the numbers come out, they seem pretty good, but then they're revising the old numbers. And also, the number of part-time jobs versus full-time jobs has kind of come, unglued, where the jobs we're adding on a net basis aren't full-time jobs. They're, I think, gig economy jobs, right? And nobody's doing that extra second gig economy job because everything's great. Or if you're retired, you're not adding the gig economy job because you feel secure in your retirement, right?
Oh, it's something extra, unless
yeah, exactly. I mean, there are some exceptions to that.
Yeah.
When I had an Uber driver in Las Vegas when I was there over the summer for my daughter's horse show, and he literally told me that his wife told him 3 days a week he had to be out of the house for 3 hours a day. So he decided to do Uber driving, during that time because he enjoyed meeting people, right? I don't think there's a lot of people like that out there adding into it. I think there's a lot of people that, are trying to make ends meet in this inflationary environment. And by the way, inflation, they haven't put a cork in it. And I don't think they're going to be able to put a cork in it. I don't think they're going to be able to get it down to 2%. I think it's going to be higher for longer, and and all of their efforts to bring it down are not succeeding. And I don't think they can. Labor is, there's never been a time I remember in my adult life where labor had as much say in what their wages are. You're looking at massive pay increases across the board. That is inflationary, right? Those costs get passed through. Energy prices, while natural gas is low right now, oil prices are high, and the renewable grid isn't reliable enough. And so that's adding costs into it. Buddy of mine's in Wyoming. They just got a 30% rate increase proposed to all people in the state of Wyoming. I know that that's not a big part of the economy, but my utility bills here in California have skyrocketed. I mean, I had a gas bill 1 month this year that was higher than my prior 2 years utility bill for gas combined.
What?
Yeah, literally. I had my gas bill for 1 month. It was a colder month, right? We had a colder winter here, and a lot more rain than we normally do. But literally that month's bill exceeded the prior 2 years combined.
Wow, that's hard to believe. So if things are going to be as tough as you say economically, should everybody take their money and hide it inside their mattresses?
Well, see, there's the problem there because they're still losing money. If we have inflation running at 5% for an extended period of time, you hide it in your mattress, it's like losing 5% every year. You can't do that. The reality is that even low inflation at 2%, like they want to get it down to, over a period of time really erodes people's purchasing power. And even though wages are up, they're still not up as high as the inflation that affects people, right? There's a lot of the inflation numbers are you can have arguments over them, whether they're accurate or not accurate, or a good reflection or a bad reflection. There's lots of ways to slice and dice them. But the reality is that, food is big to people. Energy is big to people, right? If you're a renter, rent is big to you because you get rent increases, right? So if you are a homeowner and you've got that fixed mortgage, it's not as big a deal. But then you still have upkeep costs like utilities that are climbing. So people's real standard of living is eroding. And if let's just say you're a younger person and you want to get into your first house, like literally in the last couple of years, between the rise in home prices due to a lack of supply and the raise in interest rates, like to get into the average house, I think 5 years ago you could have done it with an income of $60,000, assuming no other debt, and now you got to make more like $130,000 to get into the average home in the U.S. That's not what America's supposed to be about. The American dream was being able to have a good middle class job and buy a house and raise a family, and that's just not working right now. So some things are going to have to change, right? And so if you're investing, you can't be losing money to inflation, right? Over any period of time. Maybe for a year or two, if you're saving towards something that will give you value, like maybe you do want to buy a house and you're saving towards that, and it's all right to just accumulate money at a low interest rate. But anything longer than that, you've got to not just be, matching inflation. that just means that you're staying even. You got to exceed it, right? If you're going to invest and save, let's say for retirement or anything else, like literally the math works this way. If you work for 30 years and are retired for 15, right? That means while you would have to save 50% of your income, and we're not even looking at taxes, to have enough money to pay for that 15 years, right? So yeah, there's a lot that people need to be concerned about right now, and you can't sit on the mattress because you still got to make money. And if it's long term, you've got to make, a decent clip above what inflation is.
Lastly, Larry, how are you adjusting to the changes at home? Your daughter left for college, right?
Yes. So I got lucky. Estelle went to a school that's only about a half hour away from me. That was good because she was, been talking for all of the college period about going out of state and going much farther away. Let me tell you, she's already had one day where she wanted to hang out with dad and watch a movie, and so she came home for on a Thursday night. That was nice. So I don't have that, like some of my friends whose kids have gone across the country, but yeah, it's different, not always coming home to a teenager every night. I still have my son, but he's only with me half the time. So yeah, it's been a very, very different experience for me. But she's the future of financial architects. So I've got to, she's got to take that next level and get that education and do what she's going to do so that maybe one day her path is still what it is right now, which is to be the next generation here.
That all sounds good. Larry Steinberg, Chief Investment Officer and Partner at Financial Architects. This is the Financial Architects Podcast. I'm your host, Evan Makovsky, and we will see you on the next episode.
All right. Thank you for your time, Evan.